Unforgettable stories out of Western Jamaica from the scrapbooks of Adrian Frater. In Jamaica, when an individual becomes wanted by the police, or in local parlance, get hot, they would regularly flee their home community and try to find a safe haven elsewhere. Usually, a man who gets hot in Kingson would flee to rural Jamaica, while a rural man who gets hot usually flee to Kingstown. Those persons without so-called links would tend to keep a low profile so as not to attract unnecessary attention, especially those who flee to rural Jamaica, where residents are usually intolerant of strangers and are usually quick to ask the police, "We want to check out that strange boy when we see over the yard." However, in recent years, a new dynamic has come to the fore. When bad men go to prison, they create what is known as links with other bad men from other parishes, which are usually labeled as "me linky them." When they leave prison, they usually keep this network intact, so in times of trouble, these friends would only be too happy to take them into their communities. In this edition of Lest You Forget, I will be looking back at one of those situations which occurred in 2005 in St.James, from which I generated a major story for the Gleaner. The scenario involved then Jamaica's most wanted man, Kevin Ritchie Poo Tyndale, who the police had labelled as the leader of the notorious St.James-based criminal gang, the Gideon Warriors. At the time, the police said that Tyndale was wanted for several murders and shootings. It was at about 5 a.m. on the morning of Saturday, February 12, 2005, when I got an urgent telephone call from a trusted police source. "You want a big story?" he asked. "We were on a raid in a black shop, a little community behind John's Hall. You ever hear about Jamaica's most wanted man, a youth near Ritchie Poo? Well, we have him cornered in our house in the community." As one who was always ready to go after the big stories, I alerted one of my Gleaner colleagues and we quickly headed off to Black Shop. When we got there, the community was partially covered with early morning fog, but we could see several police vehicles and scores of police officers and soldiers surrounding a house, which was located on the bank of a river. The members of the security forces, which included a white man, who I later learned was Assistant Commissioner of Police Les Green, who was one of the officers brought in from England to help the local police battle crime and violence, appeared to be negotiating with occupants of the house. By that time, the early morning sun was out in all its glory, and the residents of the quiet community began waking up to the excitement that had taken over the community while they slept. About 25 minutes after we got there, a woman with a baby in her arms emerged from the house and was quickly ushered away towards a police car. Shortly after, a lanky man who I recognized as a past student of mine from my days at St. James High School emerged from the house with both his hands above his head. A police officer lowered his hands from behind and placed him into handcuffs. He was then taken away towards a police truck. About 10 minutes later, another man emerged from the house with both hands above his head. He was crying and begging. "Are the boy that man?" remarked a policeman. "Him lucky white man there this morning, or him woulda get him bumbo bus." As Tyndale was being led away, he kept crying and pleading. "Officer, you don't have to kill me, you know. Me and me pick them for live fine, you know. Why you not shut up your war right cloth mouth, boy? But you're a bad man and look how you piss up yourself." Tyndale seemed reluctant to be taken away from the scene where Les Green was, but he was nonetheless whisked away in a police car. After Tyndale was taken away, the Gleaner spoke to some residents, and they were seemingly quite surprised that the man who was living among them for several days was Jamaica's most wanted man, the much feared Kevin Ritchie Poo Tyndale, the leader of the much feared Gideon Warriors Gang. We just see him coming at the year with the bridge in front of the yard, you know, and we just think say him alright and him cool. Him come at the ball field every time, come roll some ball with me, and him just come a river same way like everybody else. We couldn't just look upon him like that and know he's a bad man. Before Tyndale was taken back to Kingston, he was extensively interviewed by the St. James police. A story I wrote for the Gleaner, which was published on February 18, 2005, under the headline "Kingfish to Charge Gangster with Murder," gave details of the interrogation process. It read as follows. Police officials were grilling alleged gangster Kevin Ritchie Poo Tyndale since he was nabbed in a police operation in Black Shop near Johns Hall, St. James on Saturday morning, expect to slap murder charges on him before this weekend. We have been questioning him in the presence of his lawyer, and based on what has transpired, he should be charged by this weekend, said Superintendent Denver Freighter of Operation Kingfish, which spearheaded the operation in which he was held. Superintendent Freighter also told the Gleaner that the other two men who were held alongside Tyndale and whose identities the police have withheld are also being extensively interrogated. However, he said the young woman and the child who were found in their company and who were also detained have since been released without charge. Tyndale, believed to be the second lieutenant in the infamous Gideon Warriors Gang led by Joel Andem, who is now in custody, has been prominent on the police radar in recent months. A $100,000 bounty was placed on his head as law enforcement officials stepped up their campaign to bring him to justice. In 2006, Tyndale was found guilty of the 2003 murder of Jervis Loban in Mudtown, Kingston. He was sentenced to 35 years in prison. However, 2 years later, Tyndale's murder conviction was quashed after the Court of Appeal ruled that the judge who had convicted him had made an error. The ruling stated that the trial judge erred in failing to give appropriate direction in respect of a DAC identification. While Tyndale has since moved on in his life and has been off the police radar for quite some time, that incident at Black Shop remains one of those unforgettable stories out of Western Jamaica. Unforgettable stories out of Western Jamaica from the scrapbooks of Gideon Warriors. Before you go, please remember to subscribe.